Time is 7 o'clock, and we would like to go ahead and get started. We thank you all for joining us. Let me go ahead and welcome you officially. My name is Sharice Welch, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions here at the Stony Brook School. So thank you so much for joining our virtual open house today, which will be featuring our middle and upper school. Today's agenda for our program, we will be covering. So our agenda for today will cover the middle and upper school that will be presented by my colleagues. We will have the middle school director, Mrs. Tonya Detweiler, do a short presentation and an overview of that program, along with our director of our upper school, Mr. Chris Ryan. We will also have an opportunity for Q&A, and then I will come back on and be able to go over some of the next steps in the application process and an overview of our admissions process as well. I would like to just take a few minutes to go over what are features or expectations that you can expect from this webinar platform today. As you may have already realized, your camera and microphones have already been muted. They've been turned off. And we also are asking that you ask your questions using the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A feature. And if you could use that to ask the questions. We also would like to just encourage you to ask questions throughout the program. I will then go ahead and present them to our presenters, and they will go ahead and be able to give you the answers. And we are recording this event. So if for any reason you find that you do need to leave before the event is completed, we will be sharing this recording with you, and you will receive it directly to your email. And so now we will hear a little bit more from Mrs. Detweiler.
Well, welcome everyone. It is so wonderful to be with you tonight. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to be with us. And we are very, very excited to share with you a little bit about who we are as a Stony Brook School, both in the middle school and in the upper school. So just to give you an overview of what we will be talking about, Chris Ryan and I, we will talk about the middle school and the upper school separately, what makes each individual. And then we will talk about 4 things that are encompassed in all the grades, 7th grade through 12th grade, and that's safety, discipline, advisory, and leadership. So on to the middle school. Very important in our middle school to us as teachers, to us as administrators, and for you to know as parents that our vision and really the lens through which we see everything and every decision we make is that each one of our middle school students is known individually, is loved, and is safe emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That is very important, and that is part of the reason why we keep our middle school small, so that every student has individual attention and really feels known, loved, and safe. So what does our middle school look like? What is this 7th through 9th grade journey? So I want you to envision, if you can, clasping of hands. So we have an adult hand and a middle school hand. And what we envision is in 7th grade when they come, we're holding tightly. And then by 9th grade, we're starting to let go and they're getting some independence and freedom. So what does that look like? 7th and 8th graders are supervised by adults at all times from 8 a.m. to 3:15. So they are obviously with adults in class. They do not have free periods. They have study halls that are monitored by teachers. At lunch, we have assigned seats for our 7th and 8th graders where they're eating with faculty members, and the seats change every 3 weeks, and they get to sit with each other as well as with all the different teachers. Beginning in 8th grade, they can sit on councils, but they're not leading councils yet. And then in 9th grade, when that clasp starts to let go and loosen, 9th graders who have a 3.0 GPA or higher get the coveted free period. So they can choose what they do during that period. They can be in our student center, they can be in the library setting. If they're a boarder, they can be in their dorm room. So that is a very exciting thing for our 9th graders, where we're trusting them with some time during the day. During lunch, they have a 9th grade section, but they do not have assigned tables, so they get some autonomy and some independence in choosing where they sit and with whom they sit. And then the most exciting thing for our 9th grade, and one of the features I love the most, is that they really are the leaders of our middle school. We have a delegate board of 9th graders who are literally in charge of running the middle school with me. They meet with me every week. They make decisions, they plan activities for the middle school, and they really lead our entire 7th through 9th grade, which is an incredible leadership opportunity for our 9th graders. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of a vision of how we run the middle school. And then moving on to what are the advantages of a middle school being on the same campus as an upper school. Some parents say, how is that? How is the interaction? And I will tell you that this is in the top 3 of my favorites of the Stony Brook School. And that is really how our upper school students see our middle school students. They really view them as younger brothers and sisters whom they care for, whom they love, who they're looking out for. One example of this is the mentor program we have. I would say this is one of the most coveted positions on campus, to be chosen to be a mentor. That's our 10th graders through 12th graders who go through a rigorous application and interview process in order to become a middle school mentor. And they are paired together, so 2 upper school students in a group of 3 or 4 middle school students. They become a mentoring group, and every week they are together for an hour and 15 minutes. They have lunch together in our dining hall, that each group has their own table, and then they sit together in assembly. And they do many things outside of that time period as well. They plan activities for the middle schoolers on Friday nights. It's an incredible program, and to me that sums up who Stony Brook is. Additionally, if you are passionate or advanced in a certain academic class, the beauty of the middle school being with the high school and being on the same exact schedule is you can advance in academic classes if you earn the GPA for that. So if you are excelling in math, you could take pre-calculus in 8th grade. If you are very good at languages, you could be a 2nd or 3rd level of a world language when you are in 8th grade. You could be taking advanced STEM classes when you're in 9th grade. So that is the beauty and advantage of being with the high school again. And then on the athletic field, the same thing. 7th grade through 12th grade can try out for varsity sports. And we have many middle schoolers that actually make our varsity teams and even start. And again, that's a phenomenal thing to watch as our upper school students love our middle school students and really mentor them and care for them also on the athletic field. So it's a beautiful picture of who we are as a school, and what an advantage to be a middle school on a high school campus. So that really sums up the middle school program. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Chris Ryan, Director of the Upper School.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Detweiler, for that introduction. And as you may suspect, this presentation is going to address what is unique about the upper school experience at the Stony Brook School. And I'd like to draw your attention firstly to our school mission statement, which some of you may know, some of you may not be familiar with. And I'm not going to read the whole thing for you right now, but I want to draw your attention to three elements of it. First is to love others. Second is to grow in knowledge and skill. And then third is to serve the world through character and leadership. And what I would love to do for you is paint a picture of or give you a vision for what it is that we do in the upper school with our program. And the best way to describe this, keeping in line with the school mission that we just looked at, is that our educational experience is grounded in love, so that students have a safe place to grow and to achieve and to learn what it is that they love and will be successful in. And then lastly, that growth is intended to help students go out into the world and serve. And so we challenge students quite a bit in the upper school. That transition from middle school to upper school is one that comes with a lot of challenge. But that challenge is met with both support and structure to help them to be successful. The first element of this, the groundwork for what we do, is love. And that love is something that we as a school see as emanating from the love of God and the call of Jesus to love others as we love ourselves. And so we prioritize relationships in our school, and that includes relationships between students and teachers, between students and their classmates, and between colleagues. And then we believe that these kinds of relationships actually provide the groundwork for learning. And so we see ourselves as a loving and learning community. Learning and community for us is extremely important because who you learn with matters. The people who you are interacting with, who your teachers are, all of this matters in the experience of learning for students. And so we focus on this as the groundwork for what we do. The intention of that, however, is to provide a safe space for growth. And we challenge students to grow in a number of areas. Firstly, we challenge them with academic rigor. And through our academic program, which is excellent, we challenge students to be creative and to think critically in a number of areas across our curriculum. With over 25 APs, we offer challenging courses. We offer courses that students can take for college credit. And these are all things that provide the space for students to grow into whatever field that they feel gifted in. We also spend a lot of time talking about and dealing with character education. Some of you may know that our school motto is character before career, and we take that call to train our students in that way very seriously. Character education takes place in a number of arenas across our program. Firstly, the advisory program, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that because Mrs. Detweiler is going to speak extensively about that, but I will say that that program is utilized to create a space where an advisor and around 8 students have the opportunity to get to know each other and have the opportunity to face challenging issues together and to think through ethical issues and to help students to grow. This is also something that's built into our curriculum. One of our most popular courses is an ethics and politics course where we deal with some of the most hot button and difficult ethical topics of our day. And really, what this all sums up to is that we pay quite a bit of attention to educating the whole person. And by that I mean, similarly to what Mrs. Detweiler spoke of in her program, we really want to, or we aim to educate students physically through athletics, creatively through the arts, obviously academically, but also spiritually. And then by challenging them in each of those ways, we encourage them to grow. But again, growth is intended to be for something, and that thing is service. And to equip students to serve, we provide a number of leadership opportunities. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about our leadership program. Mrs. Detweiler will continue that conversation. But we do provide a number of opportunities for our students to lead in our community. And leadership is not limited to positions, however. We also have leaders on the athletic fields, in the arts, and in the classroom. And it's something that we encourage all of our students to do at some point in their academic career. And then lastly, service is really emphasized through our community service program, which we partner with Residential Life and specifically the community service group in organizing trips on the weekends and other community service opportunities. Each student is required to complete a certain number of community service hours in order to graduate. And so this is a very broad overview of what we do in the upper school. Now, to drill in on a number of topics that I think are important that actually transcend just the upper school into the middle school, safety is something that we are obviously very, very concerned with, especially in this age of COVID-19, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment. But we believe that education can only work if students feel safe. And safety at the Stony Brook School begins with something as seemingly insignificant as attendance. Attendance is very, very important for what we do, and tracking attendance, because knowing where your students are is very, very important for keeping them safe. And because we are a mixed community, and by that I mean a community of both boarding students and day students, and since our older students have the ability to sign off campus to go to places like 7-Eleven and Dunkin' Donuts, it's very important for us to know exactly where they are to keep them safe. And we hold them accountable for that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Secondly, emergency drills are clearly an important part of that program. And attendance plays an important role in that, in as much as when we run fire drills, which we do about 8 of those a year, and the much more controversial lockdown drills, which we run twice a year. It's very, very important that we know where students are so that when we run those drills, we execute those drills, we can track students. And in the case of an emergency, we know exactly where everyone is. So emergency drills is the second component of that. Thirdly, and perhaps equally and perhaps more important, is the social and emotional safety of our students. And we focus in on this in a number of ways. Again, the advisory program plays an important role in this, but we also bring in assembly speakers that help us to address issues like bullying, issues like drug and alcohol, and relationships. We also pay particular attention to the unique individuality of each student, and we want to make sure that they feel welcomed in our community and in our classrooms. Our equity and inclusion program run by Chris Burton is very effective at helping us to maintain a community that welcomes all students. And then lastly, and I know this is the elephant in the room as it relates to safety, COVID-19 has changed so much and really shaken up the world of education. And there's not much that I can talk about right now at this moment, except for the fact that we've spent quite a bit of time planning for the 2020-2021 school year, scenarios of how we do school safely, and how we ensure that our education is top notch while maintaining social distancing protocol. So that's safety. Lastly, for me, is the discipline program at the Stony Brook School. And again, this is like safety. This may be an area where that doesn't get quite as much fanfare as things as leadership or advisory. But we are very proud of our discipline program here at the Stony Brook School. And I draw your attention firstly to the philosophy that informs our discipline program, and that is restorative discipline. Restorative discipline is relational in nature, which means we believe that all discipline should take place in the context of relationship. And this also means that discipline should be restorative rather than retributive. And by that I mean the relationships that form the groundwork of discipline are the real, those in that relationship are the real stakeholders in discipline situations. And so we want to make sure that the goal is growth in community. And that growth orientation is paired with a strong sense of accountability. And these are things we try to work into our discipline program on a daily basis. And just really quickly, I want to show you or talk a little bit about these three other areas. Firstly, the dual track system allows us to deal separately with academic integrity violations and community norm violations. An example of each would be plagiarism for academic integrity and something like bullying for community norms. By tracking those differently, we can ensure that whatever the consequences that will be doled out to the student, they will meet the offense so that the process makes sense for the student. Thirdly, daily accountability is something that allows us to track discipline on a daily basis to help students learn accountability daily. And this is done through our infraction system. And this tracks things like lates to class, dress code violations, etc. The students are made aware of how many points each of these violations is worth, and then a certain number of points equals a detention. And this is how we operate on a daily basis in our discipline program. Lastly, and I think most unique to our program, is what we call restoration plans. And these are plans that provide support and structure to students that are going through a major discipline issue, either for accumulating an abundance of infraction points or through breaking a major school rule. These restoration plans are preceded by honor council meetings where students will have the opportunity to talk through the issue so that they can understand why they made the decisions that they made. And those students play an active part in both dealing with the violation itself, but also in making amends to parties that were involved. And the goal of this, as I mentioned at the beginning, is growth in community. We want students to grow through these situations so that they can continue to grow in our community, that they will be restored to those relationships, and that they will go out into the world and serve through their character and leadership. So that's the discipline program. At this point, I'd like to pass it back to Mrs. Detweiler.
Okay, so I am very excited to share these two programs with you that again are in both the middle school and in the upper school. And both of these are really keystone programs at our school and are something that our students have grown to absolutely love. And as faculty, very, very special to us. So the first is the advisory program. Every student at the Stony Brook School has an advisor, and there are about 8 students that are in each advising group. And the advisory groups meet every week for an hour and 15 minutes. They have lunch together, and then they have about 45 minutes where they get to hang out, where they get to do an activity together. But really, it is a relaxing time of the day and a time where students can ask questions about school, about life. Some of the most amazing conversations happen during my advising group time just because we have time to be together and to relax and to unwind. And again, that is a key way where we make sure every student is known, is loved, and really where that character formation that Chris was talking about happens through questions students ask, through topics that we cover. That is really the bedrock of where that is happening. And for you as parents, the advisor really becomes one-stop shopping. Any question that you have, whether it is within the advisory program or something not related at all to the advisor, you can ask that question of the advisor and they will find you the answer if they don't know it already. So it's an amazing program, academically, spiritually, emotionally, it's all of that. And when a student is walking through discipline that Chris was just talking about in the restoration plan, the advisor is right by the side of the student, literally and figuratively, sitting in on all the meetings and being the person that the student will go to when they have to do part of their restoration plan. So it's really an exciting program and a way that every student gets plugged in. You as parents get plugged in immediately, and every student feels immediately a part of the school, whether they're new or returning. And the other program that I could talk about for hours and hours is our student leadership program. It is absolutely phenomenal because it is real leadership, real work. We literally could not do half of what we do at Stony Brook if we did not have our student leaders. They do everything from leading admissions open houses when we're on campus, to running the dining hall when we have sit-down meals, to cleaning all the classrooms. It is a phenomenal program, and our students have to go through a very rigorous application and interview process. So by the time they're getting ready to apply for colleges, it is no big deal because their resume is already done and they have been through interviews since they were in 7th grade. So they get very comfortable with that whole process. And the real focus of our student leadership program is servant leadership. We follow the example that Christ set in the Bible, that leadership is not about power and title, but it is about using that authority in order to serve those who are around you. And as you can see by this list on the screen, our leadership program and the councils that the students can get involved in spans the gamut of everything on campus and in life. So whatever their passion is, whatever they want to explore and see if they have gifts and talents in that area, there is a council for them to apply to. So our 7th graders this spring filled out their application and did interviews via Zoom. So they've already begun experiencing that, and they're already starting in their new leadership positions as we get ready for next year. So such an exciting program, and I would love to answer any questions you have about either of those. So I will turn it over now to Charisse.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Before we begin our Q&A, inevitably, there are some questions that you may have that will want to know more information about our COVID-19 planning. And so I want to share with you that we are planning to start school on campus and in August, so on time and you know, as normal or standard for us. However, we are aware of the continued uncertainty, and so we are planning different scenarios. And our head of school will be providing us with an update in June to let us know what the fall will look like. And of course, we will share that with our community, and then we will make it available to the public via our COVID-19 update section on our school's website. So we do have a few questions, and we may not have the opportunity to get to all of them. So I would like to let you know that we do intend to share a summary of the questions and answers along with the webinar recording with you. So you should expect to get both of those things next week. And so to our first question, I will direct it to perhaps Mr. Ryan first, and then certainly if Ms. Detweiler has a few things to chime in, I think that would be helpful as well. So the question goes, I have heard that many freshmen are arriving on college campuses around the country burned out because of an excessively intense high school experience, loaded down with AP courses, SAT prep, and overly burdensome workloads that keep them up late at night. How does Stony Brook handle maintaining academic rigor while at the same time allowing students to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle that doesn't leave them burned out and exhausted?
Charisse, that's an excellent question. And it is, I think, the challenge that schools like ours face in this day. Knowing what we know about the tremendous stress that students experience, especially at the collegiate level, and exactly that burnout that is so prevalent. And I think what we do here at the Stony Brook School is twofold to try to address this. First, as I mentioned in the overview of the vision for the upper school program, everything that we do is rooted in relationship. And one of the things that's really helpful about that, especially if you have healthy relationships, is that those can be life-giving. And that while academic achievement is extremely important, we, as faculty, as administrators, as staff, seek to love the entire person and seek what's best for each student. So that lens allows us to approach this topic very carefully. And one way that specific way that we've addressed this this year is we've actually, through the leadership of our director of counseling, Chad Hardison, we've created a wellness initiative that has been integrated into our assembly program, into our advisory program, that focuses in on issues of student wellness, things like sleep and study habits and drugs and alcohol and relationships and managing time. All of the things that are really hot button topics for our students, and provide all kinds of opportunities for them to manage stress, to deal with disappointment, etc. So these are things that we really, really pay attention to. And this, I believe, prior to everything that went down with COVID-19, this initiative was making great strides among our students, and is something that we will continue to do with them into next year.
Terrific. This next question is for Ms. Detweiler. What is the dress code?
Such a great question. I would answer that we essentially have two dress codes for the academic day. The one dress code spans the time from the beginning of school until mid-October. And then we began what we call our blazer season. So prior to blazer season, that would be the end of August until mid-October, I would call it business casual. So it's khaki pants or khaki Bermuda shorts that come to the knee, button down shirts or polo shirts, and sandals. But then once our blazer season begins, we have a Stony Brook blazer with a Stony Brook emblem on it. Then it becomes more business attire. What we're trying to do in our dress code is teach our students appropriate ways to dress in different scenarios. So this would be appropriate for a college interview or a job interview. So in our winter season, it's more formal. So it's a blazer, it's a collared shirt. Girls are allowed to wear skirts, but again, the button down shirts and more formal shoes. So those are kind of the two academic day dress codes. And then of course we do have a casual dress code for evenings and weekends for our boarders and day students when they're on campus.
Terrific, thank you. This next question will be for Mr. Ryan. How is the upper school day structured and what are the extracurricular offerings?
Excellent. So interestingly enough, the daily schedule is something that we are working to figure out for next year. So what I'm about to tell you may be dramatically different from what we do going forward. But for this past year, our school day was from 8 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. And there were two different kinds of days. On Mondays, there were 40-minute periods where each student would go to each of their classes throughout the day. Half of those classes in the morning, and then there would be a period where they would have lunch, and then perhaps meetings and things like that, or office hours with teachers. And then they would finish up the school day with the rest of their courses. At the end of the school day, each student is assigned what we call a work job, which is another program that we're very proud of that asks each of our students to participate in serving our community through taking care of various areas, everything from helping out in the academic office to working with the dining crew. And so that is the period immediately after the school day. And then after that are extracurricular activities, whether that be sports or the play, that's when that takes place. And then if that student is a boarder, typically dinner is served around 6 or 6:15, and then into the residential hours. So that's a typical Monday. Now, Tuesday through Friday, instead of meeting each class, they will meet half of those classes each day. So a Tuesday and a Thursday, they'll meet half of their classes, and then Wednesday and Friday, they will meet half of their classes. And those class periods are block periods, which means they are quite a bit longer than the usual class period. But everything else is essentially the same. The other thing that changes from day to day is what we do with that middle of the day schedule. Sometimes that is chapel, and this year that was once a week on Wednesday. And sometimes that is assembly or office hours, etc. And those rotate. So those are essentially the structures of the day. As far as extracurricular offerings are concerned, officially we offer a number of interscholastic sports in the fall, winter, and spring. In addition to that, we also have a number of offerings in the arts. In particular, our performance arts program is second to none. And a big kind of mainstay of what happens in the middle of the year is the theater arts program, putting on the school play. So there are a number of offerings, and those are just an example of some of those. Mrs. Detweiler, I don't know if you can think of any other extracurricular offerings.
Yeah, I think the arts, like you mentioned, are also extremely strong, and things like chess and robotics are all after school, STEM, lots of exciting opportunities.
Great. We do have a question that's asking for what are the typical numbers that we would see in each grade in middle school and then also in high school. So maybe we'll start with middle school first.
Sure. So our 7th and 8th grades are around 30 total in each grade. And then 9th grade typically doubles. So around 60 or 70 students. And then Mr. Ryan, I'll let you answer for the upper school, which does get bigger.
Sure. So this year our senior class is 95, and that's a relatively big class for us. But I would say that our upper school classes hover anywhere between 80 and 90 students.
Great. Thank you both. Can you talk a little bit, perhaps maybe with an example, about a successful mentorship relationship between the student mentor program?
So the student mentor program in relation to?
Yeah, so it's talking about a successful example or story about how that mentor relationship works and why we find so much value in it.
Mm.
Sure. So actually, it's very interesting. I had a meeting with our new delegates, which are our 9th grade leaders, and they brought this idea to me. They said, you know, with the uncertainty of what is going to happen in the fall, could we start getting to know the new students now and be paired up with the new students? And I was talking with the director of the mentor program, and he was very excited about that. So that's something that we would love to start even now, so that those relationships can be growing even over the summer. And then in the fall, whatever the process is of where we are with school, that mentorship, I think, can really help integrate our new students seamlessly. And so I think it will be a integral program in helping students during this uncertain time.
Terrific, great. Thank you. And looking at our time, that will conclude our portion for Q&A. For right now, again, as I did mention earlier, there are still several questions that we just did not have an opportunity to get to tonight, but we will provide a summary of the questions and answers, again, along with the webinar recording. So you will have an opportunity to receive the answers to those questions that haven't been covered tonight. So thank you for that. So what I will do now is just take a few more minutes and go over our application and admissions process. Just give the slide a moment to pop up. Okay, and here we are. So I would like to introduce our steps in our process by saying that tonight there is just a slide, and I'm going to briefly kind of cover an overview of what the various components are. But on our website, I do encourage you to go to our website if you haven't already to really get more in-depth, detailed information, because we do have all of the steps very detailed on our website, and that will give you some of that additional information that you might be looking for. So in general, I can say that the process does start with an inquiry. And so there will be an opportunity for us later on to share with you a link for that inquiry. If you haven't completed that, we'd ask you to start there. Then we do have an online application, and it's a common application through the what's called the Standard Application Online, or the SAO for short. We do interview all of our applicants, and right now those interviews are happening online. We ask for admissions testing, and the type of assessment will really depend on the student's grade. As well, we do ask for students whose native language is not English, that they would take some form of an English proficiency assessment as well. We are looking for recommendations from teachers, as well as one from an administrator, and then grades that comes through either transcripts or report cards. And then if families are interested in financial aid, we do have need-based financial aid, and we do ask for an application to be completed if you are interested in that. And that's our process overall. We do have a few of what we would consider to be the next steps for you as we kind of close out tonight. And I did just refer to the inquiry form. So if you haven't filled that out, we would ask that you take a moment and do that for us, so that we can stay connected, so that we can be in touch with you. And there will be a link that you can find in the chat that one of my colleagues is placing in the chat this evening. If you do have any further questions or anything that you would like to continue to discuss with us, you can reach out to us via our email address that's listed there on the screen. As well, we would really appreciate it if you could complete a post-webinar survey, and that will be directly emailed to you, as well as following us on social media. And then please come back and join us next week as we will be having another virtual open house that will be featuring our visual and performing arts programs. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard tonight, please again come back and join us next week, same time, to hear a bit more. And so this would then conclude tonight's or today's program. And so we do thank you very much for all of you who are attending today. As well, we thank our panelists, our presenters who share their information with us. We do realize that some of you may have some questions on the application process or any component of the application. And so therefore we would like to stay on just for a few additional minutes to be able to answer those questions. So if you do have any questions on the application process, please feel free to go ahead and type those into the Q&A box. And again, we'll do our best to answer those. And then for those of you for whom you do not have any further questions, we want to just say thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. Okay, I'm just still waiting, going through the questions just to see if we have a few that might pertain to the application process. Okay, it looks like we do have a couple. So there is one question that's asking about the expected acceptance dates for September admission. And so what I can tell you is that right now we are in rolling admissions. And so what that means is that we do have spots that are open, provided that they are available by the time that the application is complete. And so we will review the application once it's complete, and then be able to render a decision very shortly thereafter. So it's an ongoing, kind of rolling timeline. And so for those who are interested in applying, yes, we do encourage you to apply, and you would certainly receive a decision before September, and shortly again thereafter that the application is complete. Let's see, there is another question about the SSAT. So as in my overview, I did just talk generically mentioning that depending on the grade level of the student, there would be some form of an admissions test. And so one of the assessments is called the SSAT, the Secondary School Admissions Test. And so this question is asking about, how it favors or weights kind of in our admissions process. And I am happy to say that we are a school that still is able to do a holistic review, looking at all the components of the application. So while it is a factor, it's not the only thing that we do look at. So, everything that we ask for, we are reviewing. We'll review the interview, we will review those recommendation letters, we will review the transcript and the grade reports. And so, we'll look at everything, and then weigh the decision holistically. And then there's a question that we have about the interview, and kind of a little bit about how that process works. And so essentially, again, I do want to draw your attention to the website for any further details on kind of how interviews will take place. But essentially, once we receive an application, we will then move forward that application to the interview stage. And so it happens pretty quickly after we receive the application and kind of do the preliminary review, that will then go ahead and be able to go ahead and schedule that interview. We are looking at various time frames for conducting those interviews. For some of you who may be tuning in internationally, we are able to adjust our work day to be able to kind of accommodate for some of those interviews to happen a little bit more easily during the best hours for your time zone. And then we certainly are having them essentially all, in the morning hours and then afternoon hours as well. Let's see, do we have any further questions? I do have a question about pending applications in the SSAT. And so I will go ahead and just talk briefly, yes, about that. We are aware that the SSAT, due to the pandemic, that the timeline for that has been adjusted and tests have been canceled and things like that. But however, the Enrollment Management Association that does put together that assessment, they have indicated that they are moving forward with different options for completing that test. And so whether it's at-home testing or doing the ability to do an online version of that coming in perhaps June or late May or things like that. So we try to keep abreast of whatever those new developments are, and then we are able to kind of, you know, adjust the time frame for that application to be in accordance with that. So I'm so glad that question did come up, so that I can make sure that I could address that and clarify that for you. There is a question, and I think this would probably be our final question. When does the application become available for the 2021 application season? And so traditionally for us, that application would become available in September. We usually will spend some of the summer months kind of tweaking things and adjusting the application, and then have it go live kind of right at the end of the summer, the summer season. So we will be reviewing that and just looking at if we need to make any adjustments or tweaks kind of to that timeline. So I would encourage you to continue to just have a look at our website or check back in with us in the office via email or phone, and then we can confirm that for you of when the next cycle, the next part of the season's applications will be made available. All right. Well, thank you all so very much. Again, we thank you for being with us, and especially for being able to hang on even just a little bit longer so that we can go ahead and address your questions regarding the admissions process. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.